Hey guys, Isometric here, back to bring you another video on WoW Classic. Now, unfortunately, I don't have access to any classic footage myself, and trying to scrounge through that on the internet is really quite tedious. So instead, I'll be using the BFA servers to show in-game footage from now on. As let's be honest, that last video, although informative, perhaps a little bland with just still imagery. Anyway, without further ado, let's talk about choosing your class for Classic WoW. Okay, so let's say this class speaks to you on a personal level. Somehow, you and this class just happen to mix. Everything about this class says, hey, that's me, when you're amongst your friends. Like, hey, maybe you're the druid. You like flexibility. You like healing, tanking, DPS. You probably have a personality where you crave change. Or, perhaps, the hunter. You enjoy pulling mobs, setting up pulls for dungeon groups, and just flat out being a troll and pulling a boss and wiping a raid. Perhaps your personality type is someone who holds back from, maybe, direct conflict? Or, what about the mage? Now, most see the mage as a coward because you spend most of your time keeping enemies away instead of facing them front on, but I'd say you're more the fearless. You're a glass cannon and you live fast, die young kind of attitude. How about the paladin? Now we're talking about someone who's brave, right? Wrong. You are the sore losers and you hate losing. You like walking around BGs being the guy who just won't die. Also in Classic WoW, only the Alliance get the Paladin. It's really important to remember if you want to play a Paladin, you have to play Alliance. Alright? This is not the Burning Crusade. You do not get to play a Blood Elf. Anyway, just like the Druids, the Paladin can fill all roles of a group except for being a ranged DPS. The Priest, you are the support, the best support. When we're fighting heavily behind enemy lines, it's you that's out there in the thick of it with us, supporting groups with your defensive buffs and shields and healing. Or you can be the Master of Shadow and flay the minds of your enemies and whip them into a fearful frenzy around you. Maybe you're a rogue, you're a real cheapskate and you don't care who you fight dirty with, whether it be children to a grown man or even an old woman. Rogues are the dirty tricksters of Azeroth, the original gangsters. However, it takes a lot of finesse to be a great rogue, or just kill someone in a stunlock. How about the shaman? Who doesn't want to be Jesus? You can walk on water, self-res, and decimate anyone with a swift strike of a Wind Fury proc. You get to place totems down to help you and your allies, and all you need to do is cast Frostshock to win. That's a little inside joke for those of you who have seen the video. That's the World of Warcraft that you play. Now we're getting to the good ones. The Warlock. Basically a mage, but more of a male witch, as the mage conjures the elements to kill his enemies, the warlock conjures demons and curses their enemies to kill them. You'll have a demon for every occasion. They're a pretty versatile class in both PvE and PvP. I guess to put it simply, you love to win. And last, but certainly not least, I think this is everyone's favourite, the warrior. I feel like most people who choose to play a warrior are natural born leaders. Well, in my opinion anyway. Most warriors I know have always been pretty headstrong and have either led the raid or been guild masters themselves. Either way, you are the fearless and require both skill and gear to show their ultimate beauty. Now, respectively, each of the three main tanks in WoW are viable. Alliance will have access to all three, and Horde only two of them. That being the Druid and the Warrior. Now, the Paladin doesn't actually have a taunt, but is amazing at having AoE aggro of mobs in dungeons. The Druid was just kind of the jack of all trades, and the Warrior was always considered the main tank. So with that being said, if you want to be the main tank, I'd say Warrior is your best bet. If you want to have a different role and want to be more flexible, I'd say choose Paladin or Druid, depending on which faction you choose. Now we have the healer. We have the Paladin, which is the holy spec. The counter to that for the Horde side is the Shaman, which is the restoration spec. Both these classes' healing style are quite direct and have strong single target healing, along with the Shaman being able to use chain heal to make up for some pretty powerful group healing. Then we have the Druid. This guy doesn't do a lot of direct healing and is usually the raid/group healer. He's great for getting hots on people and slowly regenerating the group's health over time. Lastly, we have the staple healer, able to effectively heal in shadow for low level dungeons as good as any other healer. We have the priest. Now the priest is a bit special in that they excel at healing in both holy and discipline. Holy specialised more on raw healing and chunking people's health pools back to full HP, whereas discipline was more rounded on using shields, with holy spells for healing and instilling a little bit of damage onto their foes to heal their allies. Healers, just like tanks, have a pretty important role. Your only job is to make sure nobody dies, and if anyone does, even if it is their fault, it's your fault. You should know how to heal, even though they're standing in the wrong place. You just need to get good. Now we have the role of DPS. Now, not to say DPS aren't important, but DPS are cheaper by the dozen. With that being said, if you want to solidify your name on a server, you want to be the best of your class. Or just be the best class. For DPS, that being the rogue. No group is going to say no to a rogue, unless they already have one. However, you bring a lot of utility to a group. You can CC enemy pools if there's humanoids, you can unlock doors, gates and chests inside of dungeons to access areas if nobody has a key. The only problem is, everyone wants to be a rogue, but not a lot of people want to actually learn the class well enough. Next, we have the Druid. They utilise being both melee and ranged DPS. The melee DPS is cat form, and is basically the same principles as a rogue, with energy management. And the Moonkin is also known as the Oomkin. It's basically a laser chicken. They can do big damage, but once they're out of mana, that's it. There's nothing left. Now, we have the Hunter. Their only role is to DPS, and all three specs are roughly the same in Classic. Albeit that survival makes your traps stronger, marksmanship makes your shots more powerful and increases your range distance, and Beastmaster, well, it makes your pet more powerful and makes the gameplay based more around the pet, but you still just run around shooting things. It's a fun class and it's pretty fast paced, and it was actually one of the first classes I played when I first played Classic nearly 16 years ago. It's a great class if you like playing solo. Here we have the Mage. They use three different specs, that being Fire, Frost, and Arcane. They're basically the glass cannon of the scene, pretty hard to catch when they keep slowing you down. But once you get your hands on them and they can't escape you, it's pretty much game over for them. Unless they use Ice Block into a Frost Nova, shape you, and blink away. Then you're left wondering, what the hell just happened? Paladins, just like Druids, can do all three roles. Retribution Paladins were a very niche class, as only a few existed in the raiding scene back in the vanilla days of WoW. They were pretty proc based, but they did a lot of legendary things, like Reckoning Bombs, where they would charge up an ability in their talent tree, called Reckoning, and then unleash it on a boss and basically one-shot it back to Lumbee. Healing wise, they're pretty strong, and they're a pretty solid tank for dungeons too. You're basically a holy warrior. Not a bad choice if you enjoy versatility. The Priest acts as both a healer and a DPS. They're probably the most powerful healer on the list, as they have the most potent heals, but along with that, they have a pretty strong, unique DPS role too. They're basically a shadow mage. They use dots and channeling spells to inflict damage and get a pretty cool bonus of being all purple and glowy. Which is a bonus in my opinion. A very strong and sought after class in the late game. The Shaman. You can be a healer and a DPS. You can be a melee or a ranged, throwing lightning bolts or getting up close and personal and shocking your enemy with wind furies and mace swings. The Shaman's unique ability are his totems. They bring utility to any group, and I guarantee you'll have a spot as a Shaman regardless of spec. Even though currently in BFA, Shamans have lost access to pretty much all their totems, it's kind of sad, but with the return of Classic WoW, you'll be able to see all the unique class-specific quests for Shaman just to get your totems. As fun as they might be, I've heard they can actually be kind of annoying. The Warlock. Their only role is to DPS, and it's honestly a class I don't know too much about, other than what I've read. They can summon demons, and are the only other class in the game that can have a pet to help them DPS. They have an array of demons to choose from that can help them and their groups in almost all situations. And as far as I know, these guys did some insane damage in the late game, and basically just spam Shadow Bolt. But hey, if all you want to do is raid and see all the content, then the Warlock's probably a good choice. Now last, we have the Warrior. These absolute beasts of Azeroth rain destruction and fear on anyone who crosses their path. They are the juggernauts of the gaming universe. Whenever there is a battle to be fought, warriors are there on the front line decimating the enemy ranks and breaking down the front lines. Okay, So we all know the warrior is the most physically strong class in WoW, but sadly, it's very dependent on gear, and your tier sets are set to have tanking stats on them. So if you want a DPS, you're going to either want to PvP, or you're going to get into a guild that has a spot in their raid for a DPS warrior. Well guys, I hope that gave some insight to the classes in Classic WoW, and what you might expect when choosing your class. Just remember, each class and race combination can change your gameplay, but only slightly. I think you should choose what you want to play, otherwise I think you'll find you won't enjoy the game for what it is. It's an adventure, and it's something we're all a part of. And that wraps it up. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and leave a comment below if you have any ideas. So see you guys in the next video. Catch.